Hey, the Terrifier films by Damien Leone are some of, if not the best slasher films we have to date. If we look to the past, we can see iconic series such as Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, even Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Yes, I'm adding Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey to this list because I'm determined to get this film immortalized as a staple horror movie in the genre. Anyways, back to the point. Before we got the Terrifier films, we had all of these amazing slasher movies and franchises. All of these films had to happen for Terrifier to be what it is. From the gritty filter that's put over the entire film to the perfect settings that Damien Leone chooses for Art the Clown to hack and slash in, no one can say that the vibe is not up during these films. But there is another thing with these films. Why do people actually like them? Honestly, it is a lot of blood and guts. So I was inspired to make this video because I was watching a horror podcast and they were talking about the Terrifier movies in such a way that made me slightly uncomfortable. They were just talking really positively about how cool some of the gory scenes were, which I'm torn on. I do understand that that's the appeal of these movies, but I kind of wanted to get to the heart of why we actually like them because that didn't feel like a good answer to me. Yeah, it's I absolutely love these films, but why? Also, if you haven't seen any of the Terrifier films before watching this video, don't worry. I'm going to put in spoiler alerts where you can jump to another part of the video. Before we get to the greatness of Terrifier, let's hear a word from our sponsor. What are you laughing at? Well, hey, I was listening to my favorite horror podcast. They talk about everything from movies to conspiracy theories. Oh, and did I forget to mention that their personalities are top-notch? Wowee, where can I listen to this podcast that talks about horror and is personality-driven? Called Fear Talk Radio. You can listen to it on YouTube and Spotify. Ooh, nice. Yeah, what about Apple Pod? No. YouTube and Spotify. That is all. Okay, so now let's get to Terrifier. So, who is Art the Clown? He is the slasher in all of these films. It's the one thing that every horror franchise has is a nice mascot. This silly little clown gets into a lot of mischief, and it's really hard to pin down what one tool he uses to cause all of this harm. He uses the environment to kill people, and alongside that, he has a giant trash bag full of torture devices and firearms. Okay, so I'm about to give a little warning. This isn't a spoiler warning, but it's disgusting. One of the worst deaths I've seen in the Terrifier franchise is whenever he scalps this girl and then rubs salt on her scalped head. I know, it's painful. You have to wonder where they get all of this stuff from. I will say I have to give it to them for the innovative nature of all of it. He's not stuck to one weapon like the old historic slashers have been. Freddy had his claw, Michael Myers had his machete, and the leprechaun had his charm. The director Damien Leone came up with the Terrifier in his film The Ninth Circle, released in 2009. I watched this film and it's really cool to see some of the new concepts that Damien Leone has put in the Terrifier movies expressed in this movie from 2009. The first thing that I can think about is the clown, Art the Clown, and his charm that he has. In the short film from 2009, The Ninth Circle, we don't yet have David Howard Thornton, who plays Art the Clown in the new movies. He's amazing in the role and pretty iconic at this point. David Howard Thornton's charm and his mannerisms are what make these films what they are. Mike Giannelli played Art the Clown in The Ninth Circle and did an amazing job as well. Without any source material and only by Leone's directing, Giannelli came up with this Art the Clown character who expressed himself through charm and silence. This charm and silence was really uncomfortable, especially with the vile acts that he would commit after he smiles at someone and plays with them. It's weird. The director Damien Leone talked about casting David Howard Thornton after Mike Giannelli retired, and he said this: Mike may as well have been the guy dressed as a clown, whereas David is a clown. If you know him in person, he's a walking cartoon. He is Roger Rabbit in real life, and you never believe that he's Art the Clown. But he knows how to flip the switch and bring it to a dark place. If you have seen any of these films, you do know that Art the Clown can go from the happiest, most charming character, sometimes comedical, in the room to the most demented one very quick. When creating Art the Clown, Leone said that he wanted to create a counterpart to Pennywise, who is basically the clown from the It franchise made by Stephen King. In It, Pennywise talks and he's still kind of silly, but he's pretty evil. In Terrifier, Art does zero speaking and basically just murders for the fun of it. He has no true reason. He literally makes fun of people before he murders them. In my mind, Art kind of represents instability. You never really know what his next move is going to be.
And yet I've still managed to stay 2 steps ahead of everyone.
Quick aside, Damien Leone has actually stated that some of his directorial inspirations for creating these films include John Carpenter, who directed the 1998 film Vampires, and Halloween franchise. Oh, and I forgot, The Thing as well. He also said that he's inspired by Wes Craven's works. He made the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise and David Cronenberg's works. And he's really involved in a lot of like body horror and whatnot. I think it's really important to take note of all of these influences because you can see it sprinkled throughout the Terrifier franchise in a really interesting way. So what is Art the Clown? I mean, he's this like clown thingy, but here's the spoiler mark. If you don't want to be spoiled, I'm going to give you 3 seconds. Timestamps on screen. 3, 2, 1. He's basically a demon. At least this is what most people have agreed that Art is online. And the third movie kind of confirms it. At the end of the second movie, Art literally sends our main protagonist, Sienna, to hell. There's actually a theory going around that Art was actually a serial killer in the first movie, and after he died, he became a demon for the consecutive films following that. People argue that because he was a person who really liked to torture and humiliate others, that he was the perfect vessel for a demon to take hold of. This is supported by the fact that some of the people who he kills, such as Victoria from the first movie, come back possessed in this weird, like, reanimated version of themselves way later. If you don't remember who Victoria is, she's the one from the opening scene of Terrifier 1 who, like, attacks the host. If you look at Victoria in Terrifier 3, she's really not who she was anymore. While I think there is a real person in there, the demon is keeping her alive and making her live in this, like, flesh that Art has really made a number on. Also, if you are wondering who the little demon girl is from Terrifier 2, like I was for the longest time, that actually is Emily Crane, one of Art's victims that we did not get to see on screen. Some people have noted that the reason we don't see Emily Crane in Terrifier 3 is because that demon has jumped from the little girl demon to Victoria and is now taking over Victoria's body, and that's why we see Victoria a lot more in the third film. Okay, those theories do get complicated. Let's jump back to the story. So, okay, if Art is a demon, then that explains why he keeps on coming back from the dead, and he's pretty much immortal. We kind of find this in all slasher films, but one thing that unites all of them is that they have a weakness. This weakness for Art is Sienna Shaw. Sienna Shaw was introduced in Terrifier 2 as a protagonist to counter Art as a villain. She really is the counterweight to him. If we label Art as a demon, then Sienna is pretty much an angel. This is also alluded to multiple times in the films. Her angel outfit from Terrifier 2 was symbolic of her good nature. She even rises from hell when Art sends her down there. This is aided by her sword that was left by her father, who oddly knew a bit too much about Art the Clown. This weapon has the ability to destroy demons, or kind of hinder them, for a period of time. Lauren Lavera absolutely kills this role. In a good way. Absolutely love how Lauren plays Sienna in Terrifier 2 and 3. I mean, if you look at Sienna's from both of the films, the first one, which is in Terrifier 2, is this optimistic young girl who's excited to go to this party with all of her friends. She has this outfit that she's been crafting for the longest time, and then we look at where she's at in Terrifier 3, and she's having to act a completely different role. Terrifier 3 Sienna has struggling with PTSD from the events that took place at the end of Terrifier 2. She's witnessed the death of her family and is not coping really well with the world around her, understandably. Okay, quick tangent. This is Sienna's cousin, Gabby Shaw, falls into a portal to hell with the angel sword that Sienna owns. This is the only weapon Sienna can use against Art. Gabby took it to hell. The angel sword. The only thing that they can use against Art the Clown is in hell. This was actually an attempt by Damien Leone to make this film the Empire Strikes Back of the Terrifier series. He's actually credited with saying this, so he wanted it to be left on this cliffhanger that left you waiting for the next one. They're not in a good spot right now. Okay, so let's jump to the practical effects, because I think this is one of the biggest things that makes this franchise stand out. I do know that this is why a lot of people come back to these films over and over again. As I stated earlier, I never really know how to react whenever people say that they watch these films for the gore, because that's kind of weird. But like personally, I can't recommend these films based on their plot, so I guess we just go watch them for the spectacle. And let me tell you, the spectacle of these films is very good. Also, Damien Leone has criticized people who say that these films are only a gore fest. He says that that trivializes the franchise as a whole. He views it more as an art form. I completely agree. I think that there's a deeper message to these films, and whether or not we want to acknowledge that, it is an art form in and of itself. The deeper message that Leone is talking about revolves around how much danger real life confronts us with. We could die at any moment, and he stated that these movies serve as a form of cathartic release for this existential dread that all humans have. Okay, I keep on getting off track. Let's get back to the practical effects. Damien Leone has said in these movies that every kill needed to be based off of practical effects, which is so freaking cool, because how many CGI movies have you seen these days? I mean, Marvel is just CGI. It's so freaking annoying. They use CGI very sparingly in these movies, and it's only to fix up like small errors that happen during shootings, such as like a blood artery shooting too much blood like all over the entire set, and then they have to spend hours cleaning up all the fake blood. It was said that 98% of these films is actually done in practical effects. Someone asked the director Leone, how did you get the inner anatomy of a human body to look so real? And he said, well, it really doesn't. It just looks real enough. Nobody should know what the inside of a body looks like. Leone, who did most of the practical effects for his first few short films, brought Phil Falcone on to help as a producer for the mainline Terrifier films. As a team, they have only upped the ante every film. In Terrifier 3, it was reported that they used 25 gallons worth of fake blood during the filming process. As the films progressed, they also got more money and filming became easier. Terrifier 2 was actually filmed in some locations that were 20 degrees. With that, the actors were also all covered in fake blood, which was really cold and sticky. It's all good now, though, because with the success of the franchise, Terrifier 3 was only filmed in warm locations. Now on to my favorite part of these films. It's the music. Paul Wiley's score for all the 3 Terrifier movies is dark, nostalgic, and gritty. I like to think of the Terrifier soundtracks as being kind of like a grown-up version of the Stranger Things soundtracks from all the different seasons. The composer Paul Wiley is a former guitarist for the now infamous Marilyn Manson. As a composer, he masterfully blends all of the synths together to create an array of tension. If I can send you all any of his music to listen to, some standout tracks are Clown Car from Terrifier 1 and Sienna from Terrifier 2's soundtrack. The Terrifier 3 soundtrack has lots of horns and Christmas themes because, well, it's a Christmas-themed Terrifier film, and it shows the range that Paul Wiley as a composer can go to. My favorite soundtrack from any of these films has to be Terrifier 2, and it makes sense. Interesting note is that Paul Wiley only had 14 days to compose the first soundtrack for Terrifier 1. He also did this while he was on tour, playing as a guitarist. This gives the first soundtrack a really raw feeling. While it's stripped down, it still is amazing. The Terrifier 2 soundtrack was given 3 years of development, which is like absolutely nuts. This gave him unlimited time to fix these tracks. It's pretty cool because he actually littered in Easter eggs throughout the soundtracks. I mean, just listen to this clip of him talking about how he put his dog in the music.
I had a little Pomeranian. And when you'd give it a bath, it would just scream in terror. Hated baths, but besides that, it's a perfect dog. For whatever reason, did not like water. So I would give him a bath, and one time I mic'd him, just doing the thing, and then I would filter it. And you would never know, but it's under a lot of the cues in Terrifier 2.
Nice.
If you really listen, you'll hear it.
This is so cool. Just knowing that there's little tiny things hidden amongst the music gives it so much depth. I actually have a quote from this interview that I just played for you that really stuck with me.
I also like sounds that are felt more than heard, which aren't even
Textures.
really audible to the ear, but you feel underneath. It's like the weight of it. So I've been trying to take that approach more, especially with the movie Stream, where you'll feel some things that you can't necessarily hear.
Music is all about feeling, and the fact that he's looking for sounds that only evoke feeling that are underneath melodic and harmonic noises, it's amazing. If you want to check out this full interview with Paul Wiley, Alex Criscione has it on his YouTube channel, and it's definitely worth a watch if you're into music and the creation of soundtracks. Okay, so I've talked a lot about why I personally love this franchise, but let's kind of get into why people like it, because it's an interesting thing to like. Yes, it's a lot of gore. I'd argue more than you'll ever see in any Saw movie. But I truly think Damien Leone was hitting on a point whenever he said that this pulls on the real struggles of real life. We have no control over real life. I mean, this takes that idea and turns it up to 11 million with a clown murdering people out of nowhere. Any one of us could be taken at any point out of this world, and we have no control over that. It's like absolutely terrifying if you think about it, and we as humans do so much to work around that issue, whether that be religion or just rationalizing this world around us. The good part about it all is like this movie, as I said, turns it up to 11, and there's never going to be a killer clown that sneaks into your house and kills you and everyone else you love, right? All jokes aside, I've thought about it and I've thought about myself and why I actually like these movies. I've decided that they're thrillers on steroids. I mean, that's pretty much what horror is. It's a thrill ride where the stakes are immeasurably large. The first Terrifier movie kills everyone. I mean, like, everyone. By the time I was watching Terrifier 2, I was pretty much expecting everyone in that film to die as well. I was just surprised whenever we got to the third act of Terrifier 2 and Sienna was still alive. This goes to show like how high the stakes were set in the first film, and I mean they continue to be set high because he actually killed off Sienna's little brother, Jonathan, with an off-screen death, which is just disrespectful, Damien. That's really disrespectful. This was a central character to the story and you gave him an off-screen death? That's just disrespect. But overall, I hope that this video has given you a reason to go watch some of the Terrifier films if you haven't already. I also hope it gives you a chance to go check out Paul Wiley's soundtracks because they're absolutely phenomenal. From the amazing slasher of Art the Clown to the practical effects to the music, the Terrifier films have it all. Also, if you're interested in horror soundtracks, below I've put a playlist of some of the tracks from my favorite horror movies. With all that being said, if you did enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And also go check out the podcast, Fear Talk Radio. It's where me and my co-host Jonathan and Tyler talk about a whole bunch of different horror-related things. It's basically like this video, but longer. With all that being said, see you in the next video, and go watch a horror movie.